Hey, friends, welcome back to the show. We love discussing health, and we've got a repeat guest on today, Dr. Stephen Cabral, who is a board certified doctor of naturopathy and founder of the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute and EquiLife. At 17 years old, Stephen was diagnosed with a life altering illness and given no hope for recovery. He suffered for many years. It was only after he traveled all over the world and discovered how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state of the art naturopathic and functional medicine did he understand how to fully rebalance the body and re energize it with life. Today, in Dr. Cabral's online practice, where he and his team have completed over 250,000 client appointments, he uses functional medicine lab testing and personalized wellness plans to help people rebalance their mind and body to recover from autoimmune, thyroid, fatigue, hormone, digestive, and dozens of other hard to treat conditions. And his mission is to help people understand there's always a reason why you've not achieved your ideal wellness or weight loss goals, and that you can and will get well again. He's the author of two books, The Rain Barrel Effect, and his most recent, Personomics, The End of All Disease. And I'm so happy to welcome you back, Dr. Cabral.
It's great to be here, Michelle. Thanks for having me back.
Let's talk about Personomics. What what is Personomics?
Well, it's a word I've been using for, I guess, about 8 years or so. And because there really wasn't a system. I mean, if you think back, even in wellness, like let's go back to 2010. This is really like pre-YouTube, before YouTube even became very big. There was no Instagram, like Facebook was starting to gain traction. There wasn't the same spread of information. So when practitioners were working together or talking about things, it was still like quite new because the sharing of information wasn't really there. So you go to conferences, you chat with individuals, but we were using Skype back then for consultations. I mean, it was much more rare. And so when I was talking about like, well, what do you do? That was essentially the framing. It's that everybody is an individual. There's this bio-individuality to us. And that if you're using protocols that are built for the masses, it may work. Like you may get results on that with like really great results for 30 people. That's why people go on a specific diet and about a third of people get great results. A third of people, it's just okay. And a third of people, it actually makes them feel worse. And so when you start to look at that, you say, well, it doesn't make sense. It worked for my friend or it worked for my coworker or even worked for my aunt, but it didn't work for me. Why is that? So Personomics is the bio-individuality that says that everyone can and will get well, but you need to find out what your protocol is for you. And it comes down to two things: deficiencies, something your body is lacking, or toxicities, something your body has too much of. And it's just as we move through life, it just becomes far more prevalent because we've had more years on this planet, more wear and tear, more filling up of that rain barrel, right? But it always goes back to the same things, even if you're a child versus a 44-year-old.
Okay, this is so good. Just so you know, when you're talking, I'm hearing some static, like a low, like shh, which probably my editor can fix, but I just don't want anything detracting from what you're saying.
Did it go away now?
Yeah, keep talking just for a second.
Uh, Testing, 1, 2. Do you hear it still
I don't
now?
hear it.
Okay. It's my air filter. All right. I turned it off.
Oh my goodness.
So wild.
Okay. It is
Yeah.
wild, but okay, but it's better. So for
Good.
I'll cut this out too, and then we'll just go back. Okay. So this is really interesting. And I think it would be helpful for people to understand. You've been on before, we've talked about the differences, but I think understanding the differences quickly of your training versus a regular doc
Sure.
and how you kind of got on this path yourself and how basically what you're teaching and what you do for your work came as a result of your own healing.
Yes. And so, I mean, I always say the good news and the bad news is that it took 10 years for me to get well. So from 17 years old to 27, for the first 2 years, I was just going to medical doctor to medical doctor. I saw over 21 different specialists, different medical doctors. And it's not like they weren't brilliant. I mean, they were Harvard educated, Boston University, Tufts, like all around Boston, because that's where I lived. And so brilliant minds, but you have to understand is like they have one lens to look through, and that's a blood work to pharmaceutical lens. And so they ran my blood work and they didn't see anything really wrong. They saw a very low white blood count, like below a 2. And so they said, okay, is it cancer? Well, it didn't end up being cancer. Okay, is it HIV? No, it wasn't HIV. So it's like, well, what else do we do? And they literally said, one doctor said it was all in my head. The other said, you need to get worse before we can help you get better, which is a horrible thing to say as well. But I get it because that's what they were taught. Like that is the disease pathology. If your blood work looks well enough and
Yeah.
things aren't really that far off, they have nothing to do. And so the way, though, I ended up getting well is that I found a functional medicine doctor. And this is back in the 90s. So like this is far more real. Again, like no internet, at least not where I lived in Medford, Massachusetts. I always say it's like we had like a Commodore 64 computer, right? No internet.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
so a neighbor gave a recommendation for a doctor who did things a little bit differently. And that was, of course, we were skeptical. I mean, I grew up taking pharmaceuticals and antibiotics and amoxicillin every day, right? And literally from the age of 14 to 17, part of my path, I took it twice a day, every day for acne. And that's what my dermatologist gave me. So when I went to this doctor, though, they started to run the labs that I now use today, which are integrative health or functional medicine labs. And they ran the stress, mood, and metabolism test, found out I wasn't producing any cortisol. So they're basically all too low to read. That's what the lab says. And so then I take it back to my medical doctor, and they said, "Oh, well, that's really weird. Like we don't know this test, but let's run an ACTH stim test." And so lo and behold, I had Addison's disease, and later they found out I had rheumatoid arthritis, an autoimmune issue. I had POTS, mast cell activation syndrome, which they weren't even talking about back then. What else? The allergies was the big one, and then type 2 diabetes as a result of my Addison's. So yeah, it was a miserable existence. Like literally, it was a miserable existence, but I'm stubborn enough to just keep pushing. And so, I mean, don't get me wrong, I was depressed. I had some very low moments, but I went from practitioner to practitioner, natural health wise, because I realized that all the medical doctors could do is give me pharmaceuticals, Cortef and Florinef, and temporarily I got my energy levels up a little bit. But we talked about it in the last show, but to make my story a little shorter is that almost 10 years later, I met my mentor, Dr. Pete. She had a background in naturopathy, functional medicine, and genetics and all sorts of great things. She combined everything, put it together, and I was better in 6 months. And so I said, wow, I said, I've already read quite a few books. Why don't I go back to school for this? And that's so I got my doctorate degree later in life, my late 20s. And then I became board certified, obviously, my last year after I did my internships, which I went all over the world to study because basically pharmaceutical land has already been taken, right? So if you want to get on the best pharmaceuticals, medical doctors are already the best for that. What I wanted to do was help people find their underlying root cause. And so I had to look towards Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, bioregulatory medicine, orthomolecular. And that's what makes up IHP right now. The Integrative Health Practitioner Institute is 7 different forms of medicine beyond the pharmaceuticals that help people find their underlying root cause. So that was what was taught in the rain barrel effect. But Personomics, 8 years later, is helping people now understand, because again, even back then, functional medicine lab testing wasn't a big thing. And it's just starting to become it now because of the internet. Like we now know about it. So now it's like, how you got all these lab tests. How do you know which one is right for you? So in the book, I give people, I'm a very much step-by-step individual. I give people the assessments. Does this sound like you? If yes, you can run the lab, or if not, you can begin the protocol.
You write in your book, your body is not a set of isolated parts. It's an interconnected biological ecosystem. What affects your gut affects your hormones. What affects your stress response affects your metabolism. What you eat, how you move, how you sleep, all of it influences the way your body functions. Let's talk more about this. Everything that we're doing and that we actually have control of day to day impacts our health and well-being. So there's so much within our control. Um, Even when we may not feel our best. Can you unpack
Yes.
more of, this thinking?
Yeah, and this is the root cause mentality of a natural health practitioner. It's peeling back the onion. So
Okay.
let's say that someone comes in with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It could be rheumatoid arthritis, it could be any autoimmune disease. What we have to say is, okay, first of all, what is off? Well, they have elevated TPO antibodies. Okay, there's the autoimmune part of it. They have a TSH that's maybe a 3.7. So like that would be considered for us hypothyroid, but another practitioner might not necessarily, from a conventional medicine standpoint, might not see it. And then we would run additional labs and would say, oh, they have elevated aluminum and they've elevated mercury. Okay, that's interesting. And when we run their, so that's on like a minerals and metals test, and let's just say it's a candida metabolic and vitamins test to look at the gut. Okay, they've got 3 elevated markers for yeast overgrowth, and they also have Clostridia-based overgrowth for bacteria in their gut. Okay. And they have one more thing that we found, which is a sensitivity to gluten, almonds, and cow's milk dairy. Okay, so now out of all the things that it could be, we tested, we found the toxicities are a couple food sensitivities from an IgG perspective. We've
Mm.
got some overgrowth in the gut, and we have a couple heavy metals. So, do we know exactly which one is causing the Hashimoto's? Not necessarily, but we're going to work on them all. And so, by now fixing the gut, so getting rid of the yeast overgrowth and bacterial overgrowth, rebalancing the gut, healing and sealing that gut wall. Now, what happens is even when someone eats one of those foods, it's those amino acids from the foods aren't necessarily released in the bloodstream. Yeast and candida, it's gone, so it's no longer causing that immune-based cascade, which causes inflammation. And remember, genetics do matter, but they don't matter until, as they say, I don't like the analogy, so we'll have to come up with another one. But like genetics, as they say, load the gun, right? But it's the environment that pulls the trigger, and
Right.
that's why you have Hashimoto's in someone's genetics, but you didn't have Hashimoto's 8 years old. You had it later in life as that rain barrel filled up. You got the accumulated heavy metals, so we remove the heavy metals. And what happens is we immediately begin to see the TSH or the actual amount of thyroid output normalize. The TPO antibodies then come down over a period of months as there is no longer immune-based excitivity and aggravation. So a lot of people believe that they can't heal their Hashimoto's or rheumatoid arthritis. You absolutely can. And the reason is that it will always remain as part of your genetics, but the expression is what changes. And so
Mm.
you no longer have the symptoms, which might be the cold hands and cold feet, the thinning of the hair on the crown of the head, the brain fog, the low mood, the low energy. But all of that goes away. And then we wait for those antibodies to start to drop over a period of months.
Okay. So you also write in the book that we have 5 signals that our body sends to us every day to help us give information about how we're doing. So is the
Yes.
idea to really be aware of these signals? Look, you've alluded to some of the signals, but walk us through the 5 signals. What are they? What are we paying attention to day to day?
The first one that I like people to look at is their overall energy. It is unnatural to wake up exhausted. I mean, but so many
Most
people do,
people
right?
do, don't
That's
they?
right.
I feel
And I
like,
did starting at 17, right? When I had a
yeah.
real reason, a real illness for that.
Mm.
And so when you first start to see that you're waking up exhausted, the most important thing is to understand is that it's not natural. And
Okay.
so what happens is that we can run a lab test called the stress mood and metabolism test to look at our cortisol levels in the morning.
Okay.
And let's say they are low. That's why we feel lower energy in the morning when they should be literally, they should be. So normal cortisol in the morning, let's say, is around a 9. Okay.
Okay.
After that, normal's around a 2 to a 3. That's around noon. At night, evening, around dinner time, around a 1 or so, 1.5. And then before bed, like a point 0.4.
That's
So
normal.
that's normal. So you can see
Okay.
it's an enormous amount of cortisol production earlier in the morning, and then it
Yeah.
gently falls throughout the day.
Mm.
People are trying to recreate that through caffeine, but caffeine is not an energy source. It's interesting. Caffeine actually doesn't give you energy. It turns off your fatigue or tired receptors. So it shuts down adenosine. So you no longer feel tired because you are no longer able to get the signal that you are tired. So you're just pushing through because you don't have the signal anymore, which again, people have to live. I get it. I totally understand.
Yeah.
But it will wear you down faster and you will age faster with that. So my goal is what is causing this level of fatigue? And its deficiencies and its toxicities, and those things can be found. So that's
Okay.
the first place to start. And honestly, it then leads to all of the other issues that we're talking about right now for those 5 signals. And why don't we go to? Just going to jump to the fourth one, which is sleep. And why sleep is so important is that if we want to fix your exhaustion in the morning, we
Yeah.
don't do anything during the day. It's what we do the night before. So
Yes.
it's always improving your sleep. If you're not sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night, and again, it does depend on who you are, body types, all of those different things, we need to correct that first. So getting an hour and a half of deep sleep, getting 2 hours of REM sleep, that's critical, and then 7 to 9 hours of actual sleep, not just in bed, but actual sleep. So add an extra half hour to however much sleep that you want to get. That's about the time you'll need for the latency of falling asleep and maybe rolling over, getting up to use the bathroom during the middle of the night, et cetera. So,
Okay. So that's,
so
go ahead.
yep, that's 2. So sleep, critically important. Again,
Yes.
people talking about peptides and all these things to live longer. None of that matters
If you're
if you
not
don't
sleeping.
do the foundational work.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
I mean, again, great, but all of that. Mood is one here. If you find yourself irritable, anxious, overwhelmed, wired, all of this is, again, not natural for the human body. So, could it just be that you've got stress with your kids at school, your spouse, with work? Absolutely. But if it's never ending, it could be that you are having issues with a deficiency in B vitamins, deficiencies in zinc, deficiency in the ability to produce vitamin B3, niacin to turn into NAD, excuse me, which is a very popular topic right now, right? So you need all of these nutrients to create neurotransmitters, copper, magnesium. All of these are needed for dopamine. You know, a lot of people talking about like dopamine diet and dopamine jumping in a cold plunge. Fine, but maybe you don't need to do all that. Like
Right.
maybe you could live a normal diet, but just get these nutrients back in or fix where the blocks are.
Okay.
Could be anemic, could be iron deficient. We see that in our practice all the time, predominantly in women, not usually in men, but it's something that we at least worth checking out. So
Okay.
mood would be the next one. Digestion is going to be a extremely important one because as we spoke about before, if your
Yeah.
digestion is off,
Yeah.
your immune system will be off. It will
Yeah.
be over exaggerated because you are literally allowing these things called lipopolysaccharides, essentially bacteria, into your bloodstream. Okay, that's going to increase your immune reactivity, which can then lead to what's called molecular mimicry or cross reactivity, causing autoimmune based issues. But also, we understand when there pharmaceuticals are needed for life saving conditions. We're not against that either. And like, so
Yeah.
I just,
This isn't
yeah,
one over the other. This is it's an integrative approach, a holistic approach. What do you need? Where are you getting the information? But
yes.
one is looking at root cause and the other, although curiously, there are some doctors who have functional medicine training. So to the degree somebody would say these tests aren't valid or whatever, what do you say to that? Because I would imagine that even regular docs who have functional medicine training have access to these kinds of tests. I just want to
Yeah.
put that out there because I think you said even when you started, you were very skeptical. So there's obviously skepticism, and I think it's important to address that.
Yes, and I mean, part of it is you are skeptical of anything that you're not taught previous. So we already know that most doctors don't get any nutrition training, and they're taught to read blood work. And that is because you have to think about there are, 10x the amount of medical doctors out there to, let's say, a functional medicine doctor. And when you look at that, you need a very standardized approach for every practice. And it also has to be covered by health insurance. So every medical doctor, because of their own malpractice insurance, if you come in with this, you need to prescribe this. That's exactly how it works.
Right. The
So it's
insurance
very
companies get
systematized.
involved. That's
Natural health
actually
is
true. Yeah. Yeah.
natural health is not like that. You could go to 10 different practitioners and they may give you 10 different ways to heal. Now, all of those 10 could work if they're based on underlying root cause methodologies. I also feel that not all natural health practitioners are really using the science-based element of it, meaning don't give the same thing to every individual. Look at what has gone wrong with this individual. Listen to their health history, because I think all doctors and natural health practitioners are well-meaning. They want to help the
Of course.
individual. And so that's how I look. It should be patient-centric or client-centric. It's like whatever's best for the patient is what's best for them. So if they have a staph infection, take antibiotics. Like
Yeah, of
totally,
course.
totally agree with
Yeah,
that.
you're not
Yeah.
going to go to see a functional medicine for that. I think it's for people who have gone the conventional route and don't get the help they need that get frustrated and then seek out alternative routes, maybe
Yes.
in addition to or exclusively at some point, just because they want to feel better.
I think
Um,
that's usually it. Usually people turn to a natural health practitioner because they've been told their labs look fine, but they still don't feel well.
yeah,
They've been shunned by, the medical establishment, or they're not getting the results they want, or they don't want to, they go on cholesterol medication or blood pressure or, thyroid medication in their 30s, and they're like, well, you have to take this for the rest of your life. And they don't want to hear that either. And I was part of that camp for sure. At 17, I'm going to be on Prilosec, Florinef, Cortef, like all these drugs the rest of my
right.
life.
And you were
Because
so
when I did
young.
start to read up on them, those
Yeah,
people, they didn't live a very healthy, long life. And that's just not what I wanted.
of course. Okay, so what was number five? So we did energy, sleep, mood, digestion, and
Skin or outward appearance.
oh,
And so this is essentially just taking um, kind of an overall check. Is your hair thinning? Is your skin looking like there's more age spots, more wrinkles? Do your nails feel more brittle, weak, dry? And so these are all
Yes,
things we
yes,
look
and
at.
yes.
And now part of this is we could say, oh, well,
I'm like,
we're
I'm gonna
getting
be
older, right?
55. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. We're all
Yeah.
getting older, and so
Yes.
part of it is the natural part of aging. However, some people will see it happen rapidly,
Yeah.
or they'll see it just happen prematurely. And to me, prematurely really is before 55, 60 years old. I really
Yeah.
believe. Now, of course, I, I'm in my late 40s. I have some wrinkles. I have this. I have that. It's not that that's unnatural. Like that's none
Right.
of
Of
that is
course, isn't that
unnatural.
aging? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it is aging, and that aging is normal, right? Many people are trying to defy aging, and
That's
again, we
right.
try to teach adding an extra healthy 20 years to your life. I'm a big believer that average age right now is 74 for men, 77 for women. Great, but here's the thing: if you don't get heart disease, you don't get high blood pressure, stroke, and you don't get type 2 diabetes, your odds for living an extra 10 years to 88 go up dramatically, like
Yeah.
absolutely dramatically. So those are three things that we can easily prevent or reverse.
But yeah, the hair thinning is one that really concerns a lot of women, including myself. Like I just like, you go through perimenopause. I'm still in perimenopause, and your
Yes.
hair is just like falling out. Any thoughts
When
on that?
estrogen
Because
does start to drop. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, no, I didn't mean to cut you off either. Because you wrote about a woman who, but I think maybe she was younger or something, and for her it might have been thyroid related.
Yeah, so I mean, it can be low iron, it can be high levels of cortisol and stress. So high levels of epinephrine, norepinephrine, like without a doubt, that's very well tracked. Low thyroid, low iron, high cortisol output, but also low estrogen when women are going through perimenopause, menopause. So that is a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and can it be corrected though?
Yes. So we have to rebalance those levels though. And same with again, low levels. I'm not a believer in just letting the hormone levels fall out. We typically use herbal-based blends and boosting DHEA, but some women, of course, use low dose estrogen, and that's totally fine as well. They choose to do what works for them.
Yeah.
And then because low levels of estrogen can also affect your bone health, it can affect cholesterol levels, hair, skin, all of that as
In a
well.
positive way, affect in a positive way when you're
Negative
adding it
or
back in.
positive, right? Yeah, if it
Yeah.
goes too low, it's negative. That's how it affects you negatively.
Oh,
And
I
then
see.
too high,
Adding.
it can
Oh,
there's obviously not great symptoms of having high estrogen either.
okay. So based on the five, so like energy, sleep, mood, digestion, skin, do the tests that you do correspond to those five categories, or is it just more dependent on like how you broke it out in the book based on symptoms? Like how do you
It's
know what
really
to run?
Yeah, so in the book it gives you the self-assessments and so you'd say, "Oh, I have 4 out of the 12 of this. I might have gut issues. I'm going to run these gut health-based tests."
Okay, it's so interesting to me, and I think the goal is like what you wrote about in the book. It's health span over lifespan. You talked about
Yeah.
what the average age is for a man and a woman, and that if you don't have the heart disease and stroke, and what were the two others that you mentioned? Your
The
likelihood
top
of
3 are heart
yeah,
disease, stroke,
yeah,
essentially
stroke.
with high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. And then the two
Right.
other ones that are confounding essentially are Alzheimer's, dementia, and cancer. So those are the only 5 reasons, honestly, those are the only 5 reasons people really die before their late 80s. That's it. There are random ones after that, like kidney disease, but that's a complication usually of
Yeah.
diabetes and other factors.
Right.
There's smoking related. There literally is
Sure.
falls and accidents is a big one. So
Right.
when we look at that, those are the only 5 we really need to be concerned with. They
Yeah.
honestly are. And so once we know that, well, the first 3 are lifestyle based. They really are.
And what has you excited? Like, what are your thoughts on AI and how it's going to impact the world of health? That's probably the one area that doesn't terrify me where AI is involved. I don't know. I'm not as excited about it in many other areas because I
Yeah.
feel like it's kind of could take over in ways that I don't like and it could impact humanity. But I feel like in the health space, so much good
Yeah,
is
I
going to
agree.
come. I'm just curious what your thoughts are. I'm actually
Well,
excited in the health space.
we've made very little progress in the cancer frontier. Very little. Made progress everywhere else. And I honestly believe if you come into our practice, or again, an integrative health practice doesn't be our practice, we're going to fix it. Like we really believe that. We've been doing this over 300,000 clients over 25 years. we've seen it all. And so it's not saying like, oh, there's any ego to that. It's just like, yeah, we already made all the mistakes the first half a decade, right? And then after that, like the last 20 years, we really haven't dialed in. But also it's like, it's just not the ability to give up. It's like you just continue to make the adjustments as needed, knowing that nobody's perfect, and you keep working the process. But cancer is the wild card. I always say that. And so what I want is for a artificial general or super intelligence to be able to look at things that we can't look at. And when I listen to like David Sinclair and others, they're able to run like 1,000 different studies in the time it would take like to run a study now using AI-based models. And so they're creating those. We're creating them in our own practice for
Yeah, I
natural health.
wondered. Yeah, because you
And
could
so
just
what
plug in
we're
data.
saying is that
Yeah.
it's not ready for prime time yet, because
Yeah,
honestly
yeah.
it really has to be perfect. And you have to put up the right guardrails. But we're trying to say is like, all right, based on right now I have 54,000 hours of podcasts, and I probably have about 500 hours of IHP teaching material. So we're training in all of that, and others as well. It doesn't have to just be mine. But what we want to say is, what in this case or scenario are we not seeing? And for
Yeah.
cancer, are there any off-label drugs that work in a specific way, like I don't even know if we can talk about them right now, but a membendazole and fembendazole and others that are proving that they stop angiogenesis to some of these tumors? Not the only thing, but like, okay, that might be helpful. Are there any other immunologics that might be able to be developed that we don't even thinking about right now that AI will, because of its processing computation that is just it's just insane. Like it's not even able to be spoken about as to how quickly it can look through all of the
I know
research
it's
and come up
insane.
with, it's not even novel approaches yet. So we're still waiting for that. Maybe that's 2-3 years away, but at least right now we can see things that we may not be able to see from the research that's already out there.
Yeah, so especially in in the area of cancer research and
Yeah.
stuff, you're the most hopeful. That makes sense. Dr. Cabral, the intention of the show is really to invite women off the sidelines into her starring role. Women sideline themselves, they sideline their health, they nurture everyone around them, and they don't even think about what they're eating or whether they've moved their body.
Yes.
So, based on your extensive history working with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of clients combined with your practice, what advice can you give the women listening today to invite her to be the star of her health? What do you want her, like if she took nothing away from this conversation, like what can you leave her with today?
Well, I mean, I'll just share from uh, personal experience in the practice. 70% of all of our clients have been and continue to be women. Typical age is probably like 40 to 60 years old. And we want them to be the star of their life because they are the star and caretaker for everyone else. So I always say, and again, obviously, this is not my line, but an empty cup is difficult to pour from, right? So it
Yes.
is not a bad thing for you to really invest in your own self-care. And that could be, getting to bed a little bit earlier, taking an Epsom salt soak the night before, if that calms your nervous system, making time for some sauna, getting in your 7,500 to 10,000 steps, like all of that, small things. But it's really, there's no major thing. People are always looking for the silver bullet. There's no major thing. It's all the little things that add up over time. And I wouldn't feel bad about doing these things or making the time. Usually, women will invest in them, but then they feel bad about taking their time towards them. If you're better for you, you'll show up better for everyone else. I know my wife, she takes care of our whole family. She takes care of my daughters. She's the one who walks the dog the majority of the time, right? And so it's like, she needs to be at her best for all of us as well. I think that's just how I would answer that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that's what motivates a woman, knowing that if she's at her best, then she can actually pour into those that she loves and are that are around her. So we've talked about the importance of sleep, movement, um, paying attention to these signals that your body's giving you. Is there anything though that I didn't ask that you want to make sure to leave the women listening with today?
Just that there's always an underlying root cause, no matter what you've been told. I mean, for 2 years, I was told that it's all in my head, or you're going to have to get worse before we can help you get better. And even then, when there was a diagnosis, it's no, like this is your option to take the pharmaceuticals and feel better or to not. And so, what I would always say is that our body's always giving us signals, it's always trying to tell us something. And it's our job to listen. That's the best of our ability. We're all going to have off days and off weeks. That's part of life. That's the ebb and flow to life. But if you've been really suffering from low mood, low energy, low libido, low ambition, low drive, that's a sign that your body's not getting what it needs and that it is overwhelmed. And so the first thing we want to do, and the fastest turnarounds we see, is we're going to give you the nutrition you need, the nutritional supplements you need, the sleep, the rest that you need. Goes back to that de-stress protocol. And yes, again, I don't say this for all women, but yes, women do really help out so many other people in their life, but they deserve to also feel good for them too, right? Like it's
Right.
their life and they should enjoy that same level of energy maybe that they're trying to pour into others. And so yeah, that's my recommendation, is just to not stop looking. Like, it's no matter what age you are, if you think about it right now, especially in the age that we're in right now, people are going to live easily to 90. I know people saying to like 150 years old. No, you've got a really good shot to live to 100 in this day and age. If you're under 75 right now, yeah, if you're under 75 right now, you've got a really great shot to live to 90 to 100 years old. That means if you're 60 years old, okay, don't think about 15 more years, think about 35 more years. And that's just a different way of looking at it. So take care of your
Yeah.
body and your mind now, because that's what you have for the rest of this life.
That's right. And you want it working for you
That's right.
in optimal health. Everything that we talked about, your book, everything I'll put in the show notes, but why don't you direct my audience where you want them to connect if they want to learn more about the work that you're doing? Where should I direct them, Dr. Cabral?
Yeah, the new book is just at Personomics.io. It's essentially the study of you, and that's all the information there. My social on Instagram is just Stephen Cabral, and my podcast is the Cabral Concept. So, yeah, if anybody has any questions, we're always open to helping and answering those. And appreciate all the work you do and allowing me to chat here today with your community.
It's always a pleasure connecting with you, and it's so great to see you and to be with you again. So thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you.